matrix of goddess wisdom came out of Oceania. It came from the southern part of the planet. It came out of Oceania. And it came up through southern India and had a great, great flowering in the Dravidian culture of southern India. And then what happened was that certain yogis and teachers from various parts of the world were drawn to the feminine, to the goddess mysteries of southern India. And they went down there to practice and learn sexual yoga and the secrets of the goddess that could be learned. And then they migrated and took it to other parts of the world. And eventually, some of that goddess wisdom from southern India was taken to Tibet, where Tara reappeared as an indigenous goddess of Tibet, which she actually isn't. Okay? And she has a role today, so that's kind of the historical background, which is, I love that stuff. I mean, it's really fascinating, you know. But what is her role today, and what is her importance today? Well, all the Dakinis and Mahavidyas, or Ishtadavatas, as they call them in Sanskrit, of the Shakti cluster, all the 16 of them, there are 18 points in the Shakti cluster, but there are 16 vibrational modes of the goddess. And all of these are frequencies of the mind and emotions of Gaia herself. So when you feel these frequencies, when you feel Tara, when you connect with Tara through an icon or through a meditation, you are actually connecting with one of these 16 bands of emanations of the earth itself, of the divine feminine goddess wisdom that is embodied in the earth. And it's absolutely fantastic how these frequencies are so specific, and how when you get on them and when you sense them, they have an entraining power. You know what I mean? They entrain your mind and your imagination. They draw you to them, and they are highly, highly interactive bands of psychic and subliminal consciousness, and they're alive. And they each have different functions, which I characterize as well as I can in some of my writings on planetary Tantra. So what would you say is your conception, Suzanne, so far, of the function and the role of Tara?
Well, she's very multifaceted, full spectrum, if you will. And so I think...
what is she traditionally thought of? Her name means like the bridge or something, doesn't it?
Yeah, but she's very much projected as love and compassion, but which is somewhat of a mask, because she tames the wrathful beast, or helps him slay, or her, in the process of destroying the illusion. So her role is very multifaceted, and I don't think completely revealed yet, because of some of the teachings that have been passed down were oral and actually completely buried in different aspects of this planet.
Yeah, that's true. And they, the Tibetan Buddhists and Karmapas and Rinpoches have played their cards very close to their chest up till now. They've withheld some of the most juicy and fantastic aspects of these Dakini energies from us, you know. But as I said earlier in our talk, that game is up now. And all of this Dakini energy is freely available to everyone through the generosity of the Wisdom Goddess. She's opening her total range, her total spectrum of powers is coming to a theater near you very soon, you know. And in that array of powers, I just tell you briefly how I see Tara. When I was first getting a round of these Dakinis and getting knocked flat by them, as they will do when you tune them in, because they're very, very powerful. There's no mistaking the feeling, and other people have reported this as well. I got a certain amount of, let's say, instruction of their nature and their role. And what I understood about Tara is that it's the wrathful green Tara that we want to look at. Not so much the Tara of compassion, the sweet, sort of sugary, soft Tara that receives everyone or consoles people. No, the wrathful green Tara, who is called the selector. And she is the one who selects those who can be the protectors of life in Kali's band. So she's very closely related to the initiations of Kali. And she selects you by the quality of anger. and also by the greenness, which is to say the quality of generosity and your wish to protect and preserve the innocent forces of nature. So in a human individual who has those qualities very strongly, love and protection of life and anger against that which threatens life, Tara will intervene, and Tara will select those people and integrate them into Kali's band. So that's how I see her role basically now. Freed, more or less, from the parameters of her role in Tibetan Buddhism.
Right. Well said.
Now, what was your question about Vishwamata 9/11? I was really struck.
Yes.
Yeah.
You mentioned her in the notes, and yes, as a potential clue for what she carries in relation to dissolving the atomic structure of the physical body altogether in Tantra.
Oh, wow. Oh, yes, that's right. Yeah. Wow, I hadn't thought of that. That's the connection. That's wow.
It's the connection.
That's a direct hit. Yeah. Okay, well, let me say this about Vishwamata, just for people who don't know what we're talking about here, or have the faintest idea. Vishwamata is one of the diamond sky dakinis in this complex called the Shakti Cluster. You can read about what that is on my site, meditavehistory.org. Go to the Planetary Tantra section. And there's a button for Shakti Cluster. She is, again, a frequency of the Gaian intelligence, of the planetary intelligence, and a frequency of the passion and emotion of the goddess. And each of these frequencies is an instructing force. When you connect with it, it takes over the subliminal level of your mind and gives you instruction. That's why they were called traditionally tutelary deities, or Ishtadevata. Tutelary means teaching deities, teaching divinities. So you have to ask yourself, if you want to be acquainted with the Shakti Cluster, with Tara, with Vishwamata, with Vajrayogini, with Bhairavi, or someone like Matangi, you have to say, well, what does she teach? No, because each of them teaches a different thing. Being interactive with the Shakti Cluster is not so different from going into a university and going into different classrooms. You walk into one classroom, you're going to be taught botany. You walk into another classroom, you're going to be taught geometry. And so the connection with these Dakini teachers is very specific. So what does she teach? Well, she teaches some really mysterious things about the true nature of karma, that there is no karma such as we've been taught, but there is a dynamic of reciprocity in the universe. And she teaches about that. I don't know that much about her teaching because I've only lived through one shift of Vishwamata. This will be the second one unfolding right now. But it is remarkable that she is connected with an extremely esoteric Tibetan practice which claims to give the power for the dissolution of atomic and molecular structure. Mm-hmm. And as far as I know, the problem we face with 9/11 is that we're not going to get past it until we admit how it was done. Not who did it or why. That comes later. First we have to admit how it was done. As far as I know, Dr. Judy Wood is the only person who solved that riddle. And, I gave a talk with her recently, or had an interview with her on Grok the Talk. You might have caught that.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. I think it's so important for the Gaian warriors today who are listening to this talk, and those to become warriors to be, so important to understand that we have to face the ultimate horror of what 9/11 is in order to overcome that horror. We can't face that horror unless we really realize what was done. It wasn't thermite. It wasn't some kind of explosive that you could imagine. It wasn't mini nukes, which is a complete fiction. It was Flash Gordon type directed energy weapons of the most terrifying potency. And somebody on this planet has these devices right now, as you and I are having this conversation. some group on this planet have these devices, and these devices are terrifying. They're the devices that are described in the Mahabharata and in the Puranas and in the stories that come out of shamanic memory of previous kalpas of the human experiment when we did the same thing. Apparently there were previous kalpas and previous cycles when this same thing happened. When the technology of these directed energy weapons, scalar weapons, Tesla weapons, call them what you will, fell into the hands of the worst people on the planet. This is the reality of our situation. And until we face that, we're not going to be able to rectify the situation. So since Vishvamata has to do with setting things straight, setting the levels of the balance straight, and observing the balance of cosmic energy rather than the imbalance, because her constellation is the image of the scales, you know. Mm-hmm. Since Vishvamata transmits those teachings, I think you're absolutely spot on that this is the moment to look at that in the perspective of her shift, which just began 3 days ago.
Right. The big reveal.
The big reveal. You know,
yeah.
The big thing is, there's two aspects to the big reveal, Suzanne. The first aspect, Judy Wood has done. And God, I mean, what a woman. The courage of this woman just amazes me. Mm-hmm. I mean, alone. She is alone. Do you realize that?
Yeah.
She is alone. This one human being actually had the scientific sobriety and determination to actually investigate the crime scene. And she concludes, and I think it's irrefutable if you read her book, that the damage, you know, people saying, oh, 2 planes hit the towers and then the 3rd building mysteriously fell down. 3 buildings. No. 7 buildings.
Right.
And some of them have holes in them that look like they were cored out by the kind of device that you use to core out an apple. You know? Do you do that with thermite? I don't think so. No. And all the effects that she describes, all the anomalous effects, point to the irrefutable conclusion that it was done with these weapons. So that's the first point of the revelation. The second point of the revelation is, well, you know, who has them?
Right.
We have to know. There is no way to go ahead unless we find out, and we can find out.
And do you feel, just by, I don't know, your inner knowing, that some of this tantra might be returned in bringing balance to certain beings on this planet to make the plane feel equal?
Yes, exactly. I like that term. I think that the limits, there are no limits of planetary tantra. There are no limits of what we can do in interactive magic with the goddess. You know, there's a very famous book that was handed to me by Harold Talbot, a gentleman I used to know when I was associated with the Marian Institute in the United States. And Harold Talbot is the head of the Bodhiana Foundation, which has long supported some of these Tibetan masters in the United States and elsewhere. And they're basically in the tradition of Longchenpa, but then so am I from another angle. So I felt a great affinity when I met Harold Talbot, and he gave me this book, Masters of Magic and Meditation. And what you find in this book, which is a story of the Tibetan masters, including Guru Rinpoche, Padmasambhava, is you find a mix of brilliant teachings about the nature of consciousness and teachings of true enlightenment and pointing to the practices that lead to true enlightenment, mixed up with these fantastic fairy tale stories of these powers that these gurus and Rinpoches have, that they dissolve into the rainbow body, that they can appear in the